Since the fuse flag is set to true, we'll dive into the fuse method inside tasks.py. Next, we'll jump into the isFuse method right under this function. The isFuse method checks if the model has fewer than a specified number of normalization layers, like batch norm, inside the convolutional layers. If the number of such layers is below the threshold, it returns true, otherwise it returns false. In our case, for the nano model, Bn equals 17 normalization layers, so it returns false, and we step into it. The fuse method will combine the convolutional weights and batch normalization weights and bias into a single layer. This improves computational efficiency by performing these operations once during model creation, so during inference, we can use the combined weights and bias without needing to recompute them. This code iterates through the layers of the model, checking if each layer belongs to one of the specified classes, such as conv or dwconv, for depth-wise convolution. The first layer, M, is sequential, which isn't one of these classes, so we skip over it. The next layer is a conv layer, which matches one of the target classes, so we step into it, but skip over conv2. At this point, we jump into the fuse conv and batch normalization function, passing the convolutional weights and batch normalization weights and bias as arguments. Although the reference link here is broken, I found another source that explains this function well, which I'll show you in just a moment. First, let's run this. The code creates a new conv2d instance with the same parameters as the original convolutional layer, such as input channels, output channels, kernel size, stride, padding, dilation, and groups. However, bias is explicitly set to true, even if the original layer lacked a bias term. Gradient computations are disabled using dot requires grad false because they are unnecessary for prediction, and the new layer is moved to the same device, CPU, as the original layer for consistency. Now I think this will be easier to understand in our Colab environment, so let's jump there. We'll head to the load PyTorch section. Since we've already downloaded our model earlier, we can load the model component from the PyTorch checkpoint file. The variable model now holds the model's state dictionary, which contains the weights and biases needed to reconstruct the model. We can easily access the convolution and batch normalization layers from the first block of the model's architecture and save them to the respective conv and bn variables. Note that the conv layer still does not have a bias. Next, we create a new convolutional layer, fused conv, with the same parameters as the original conv layer, similar to what we did in VS Code. For reference, I'm also showing the arguments for the PyTorch class. As I mentioned earlier, I found this formula breakdown online from Nenad Marcos, which I link here. I added color coding to highlight different representations of the same concept. Additionally, to further clarify, I included a numbering sequence on the bottom formulas to show the steps as they are calculated, aligning with the steps we follow in VS Code. In this first line, we reshape the convolutional layer's weight tensor into a 2D tensor, where each row corresponds to the flattened kernel weights for an output channel, preparing it for further operations. Next, we create a diagonal matrix, WBN, where each diagonal element scales the batch normalization layer's weights by the inverse standard deviation, computed as the square root of the batch normalization's running variance, with a small epsilon for numerical stability. Finally, we fuse the batch normalization and convolutional layer weights by performing matrix multiplication, then reshaping and copying the result into the fused convolutional layers weights. Let's focus on the bias terms. This line initializes the bias term for the convolutional layer. If the layer doesn't have a bias, as in our case, it creates a tensor of zeros with the shape of the output channels. Otherwise, it uses the existing bias. Next, this line computes the adjusted bias for the batch normalization layer by subtracting the effect of the running mean, scaling it by the weights, and normalizing by the running variance and epsilon, ensuring the bias reflects the learned batch normalization parameters. Finally, this line updates the bias of the fused convolution layer by multiplying the batch normalized weights with the reshaped convolution bias, then adding the adjusted batch normalization bias, ensuring the bias is correctly fused. Now that we've covered what this code is doing, we can run it, and I'll also print the output shapes of these operations. Let's return to VS Code, quickly execute the code, and then we'll get the fused convolution for this first layer. When we run this, we overwrite the original convolution with the fused values. Next, we remove the batch-normalization layer by deleting its attribute. And finally, we update the model's forward method to use the fused forward pass, m.forwardFuse, instead of the original m.forward. We will repeat this process for all the convolutional layers in the neural network that have an associated batch-normalization layer. Once all the layers are fused, we will return self, our fused detection model. Now that our model has been fused, we check if it has a KPT shape attribute. Since it doesn't, we skip this step. Next, the model stride is set to 32 in our case, and the class names are retrieved while handling potential module wrapping. Our FP16 flag is set to false, so we continue with FP32. Finally, the model is assigned to self.model for further use, and the PT flag is set to true to indicate the model is in PyTorch format. In our case, none of the conditions to load external metadata YAML are met, so we skip them. Next, we check if the names variable is already defined in the local scope. Since it is, we proceed to the check class names function. This function first verifies if names is a dictionary. If it is, it converts the string keys to integers and non-string values to strings. Then it checks the validity of class indices, raising a key error if any class index is out of range. Finally, it returns the names dictionary. This code disables gradient computation during inference by setting requires grad to false. This ensures that the model's weights are frozen and gradients aren't calculated. And this line updates the object's dunderdict with all the local variables, effectively assigning each local variable as an attribute of the object, making them accessible with self. We are now back in the base predictor class, where the device and precision settings for the model are updated if needed. Then the model is switched to evaluation mode using .eval, disabling training specific behaviors such as updating batch statistics. We've set up the model for our predictor. We step over this since prompts is false. Next, we check if the interface flag is set to true, but since it is not, we call the predictor object directly, passing both source, our Explorer image, and stream equals false as the arguments. If the stream is true, the code runs stream inference and directly returns the results. Otherwise, as in our case, it merges the results into a list before returning them. We jump into the stream inference method, decorated with @smart inference mode, ensuring efficient inference. It handles real-time processing of video streams or camera feeds, optionally saving results to a file. Since args.verbose is set to true, it logs an empty message to the terminal for formatting. This code ensures thread-safe execution of the setup source method using self._lock.